Salutations everybody, it is Matty here today. I have one single desire, a Fallout 3 remaster. Now normally around this time of year, we see Bethesda E3 leaks. Admittedly, the hype is quite a bit low this year because we know Bethesda game studios won't be bringing along Starfield or Elder Scrolls 6, but also because unlike last year, there hasn't been a single leak. They were like a pipe last year, okay? There was leaks everywhere, but all of a sudden, they're like a chicken. What the fuck does that even mean? Why did I say a chicken? They're like a rock, there's no leaks. Anyway, during my reminiscing, I remembered that the Fallout 3 Nintendo Switch memo leak had happened and it had all of us anxiously awaiting a possible announcement from Bethesda. Furthermore, there was that unknown app on Steam database that folks assumed was going to be an update to the game that let PC players upgrade for free, just like they may have with Skyrim Special Edition. Now it turns out that was connected to the soundtrack, and all of the Bethesda games alongside Skyrim and Oblivion were also receiving some type of, I'd imagine, licensing update for it. Now before I go on any further, just know these are my desires. This is what I want. I have not heard anything. If I did hear anything, you guys would be the first to know because I'd be shitting my pants alongside all of you. Pretty much, I have three core reasons why Fallout 3 needs a remaster. It's not just me being a fanboy, me loving Fallout 3. This game needs an update. So let's get into how Bethesda could capitalize on that. For starters, Fallout 3 does not work. Simply does not work with modern PCs, thanks to many things, but most notably is Games for Windows Live. Granted, there is a mod that disables that, but for me, my game, it just straight up doesn't start. But look at this, I'm hitting the play button, start. But like I said, it just does not work on modern PC. Which will bring us to modding, which on Fallout 3, a lot of it's just unofficial patches, getting things working, graphical updates. Fallout 3 modding never really had a chance to get a ton of attention as far as I'm concerned. The modding community exploded with Skyrim and New Vegas. While 3 got its share of attention, mostly in the form of, as I said, getting the game running or looking prettier, it's clear that the other two were favorited amongst the modding community, and rightfully so. I always wondered what life would be like if Fallout 3 received a special edition, so to say, similar to Skyrim, that brought in console modding along with reinvigorating that part of the fandom. Now, while both Skyrim and New Vegas are fantastic games, I think a great part of their longevity is that there's a large install base, that the game works on modern PCs, and on top of that, there are a lot of people using mods. If Fallout 3 received that type of update, I imagine you'd see the same type of effect. That brings me to my third reason, the Nintendo Switch. If there is a system that gives random ass third-party games a second life, it is the Nintendo Switch. We're talking about the console that in 2019 received ports for Dragon's Dogma Dark Arisen, Saints Row the Third, and Wasteland 2. The reason for that is the Switch is selling like hotcakes, and the install base is hungry for some of their favorite titles to make their way over to the hybrid console, mostly for that sweet portability factor. Let's be honest, we all have that one Nintendo Switch game that we wanted to see a port of just so we could lay in our damn bed and play it and say, yeah, this thing is portable. Hell, it still blows my mind that I can pick up Skyrim and play it on the go. That moment really hit me when I was on the subway with my girlfriend and I was knocking out some quests on our ride. It's been an amazing feeling that's instilled in most of us since I'd imagined the Game Boy Advance days where we'd see NES games make their way to handhelds. It's an empowering yet fascinating thing. What better title to give a second life to than Fallout 3? Now, I will say that last year would have been a perfect year because it was the 10-year anniversary of Fallout 3, but I digress, I will take anything. A dream come true would naturally be doing a bundle of Fallout 3 and New Vegas on the Xbox One and PS4 with some updates and bug fixes to the game. The only reason I don't hold my breath is simply because anytime I see more than one company handling a franchise, I know these re-releases get complicated. I mean, when we start seeing Ghostbusters Remastered, yes, really, Ghostbusters Remastered surface on ratings boards, but not KOTOR, one of the most popular Star Wars titles ever, whose license was in the hands of Microsoft, BioWare, Obsidian, and now EA owns Star Wars Gaming. Maybe I'm just scarred by all of this, but I'm pretty much saying don't hold your breath when it comes to additional companies getting involved. More paperwork, more splits, more bullshit, unintentional rhymes, but hey, makes the video look better. Cool, let's go.
Well, that's the most insulting thing anyone has ever said to me. Here I offer my hospitality, and you spit it right back in my face.
Of course, I'm not the only fan of Bethesda Game Studios who wants remasters or re-releases of some shape or form. Many journalists have asked Bethesda these questions, but the most recent answer we received was actually from Todd Howards. So let's take a look at his reasoning as to why Bethesda hasn't gone back to some of these games and given them a little bit of an update. Bethesda Game Studios director Todd Howard doesn't really want to chase that dragon. In an interview with The Guardian, Howard expressed his disinterest in remastering some of the studio's older games by saying, "I'm happy that you can play, for example, Morrowind on the Xbox One as it's backwards compatible. I'm really happy that Microsoft, Sony, Nintendo, and others are making it easier for people to play older games as they were played at the time. I actually prefer that over remasters." Howard explains his logic by emphasizing that those older titles are a product of their time. They shouldn't necessarily be gussied up to current standards. He continued, "I'd rather you play Morrowind the way it was. I think the age is a part of its identity." Now, while I think that diminishes a lot of our chances, I'm sure our first thought is, well, if that's the case, why all the Skyrim ports, Todd? Well, besides Skyrim being insanely popular, a port to the Xbox One was actually done during the development of Fallout 4. That's actually how Fallout 4 began, which is pretty nuts when you think about it. When you take that into consideration, the porting of the product was done, and for years at that, when you look at when Fallout 4's development began versus when Skyrim Special Edition had dropped. This likely explains why Bethesda released this, since outside of supporting console mods and some graphical updates, Skyrim Special Edition was pretty much a finished product years ago, ready to print money whenever Bethesda decided the time was right. And I mean, it was smart by Bethesda because they literally rode the Fallout 4 high. They released DLC up until August, and then a couple of months later in October, they dropped Skyrim Special Edition. They literally raked in probably more cash in that period of time than in their company's history. It's insane how much money they printed through this game. Now, I understand Todd's reasoning, and in some ways, I actually agree. Going back and remaking an entire game is risky work. You don't always get a Resident Evil 2, where you give birth to a game that is better than the original in every single way. You sometimes get an Assassin's Creed 3, where the original on the 360 somehow magically looks better than the next-gen older brother. Or you have what I believe will be the case with Final Fantasy VII's remake, where, I'm sorry, I don't mean to assume, but the game is so gargantuan that it's being split into 3 separate games, and it's inevitable something that made the series special to someone at some point in time is getting left out in that process. There's too many hands, there's too much development time, it's not one big product. You're pretty much risking muddying history. But I am asking for a remaster here. Touch up the graphics, get the game working on modern PC, add console mods, just as you did for Fallout 4 and Skyrim, and call it a day. It's been long enough where a special edition is justifiable on those merits, whereas Skyrim left some wanting because there wasn't a decade-plus gap since we last played the game, it was easily accessible, and therefore we were hoping Bethesda would add more to the game like quests, weapons, something along those lines. And speaking of mods, I was thinking about how when Skyrim Special Edition dropped, it actually stagnated the modding community a bit because certain mods weren't compatible with Special Edition and it required its own script extender, so some mods only work with Special Edition and some mods only work with vanilla Skyrim. So in the middle of developing bigger mods, there were some complications and they would have to continue developing just for vanilla Skyrim. With Fallout 3, this actually won't be an issue because there isn't that much of a prevalent modding community, and a large majority, not all, but a large majority of the mods are fixing the game, getting it running. And I think when that's the most of your modding community, that presents a big issue. What I see for Bethesda, if I'm them, is an opportunity to get the game running on PC, get more people playing that, explode the modding community, which in turn sells your game. Bethesda knows this. It's the reason that they have so much longevity, and I'd say it's the reason they earned such a big name in the games industry. And on top of that, you have the Nintendo Switch, which has a large, growing install base, and people always love to see ports there. And we all know, based off how well Skyrim sold, that Fallout 3 would be a very surprising port and would sell extremely well on the Switch. Switch owners love RPGs, let's be honest. So it is just a match made in heaven to put Fallout 3 on the Switch, especially because it's a mature rated game. We know those are a dime a dozen. We saw Mortal Kombat 11 on the Switch, but it seems like it's not as frequent. So seeing Fallout 3 make its way there, that'd be awesome. Ultimately, I just think that the time is right. I also think that the game needs it because PlayStation 5 is only going to be backwards compatible with PlayStation 4 games. PS Now sucks, so therefore, the only main way you can play Fallout 3 in a stable manner is backwards compatibility on the Xbox One. Not everyone owns an Xbox One, so that's why I wanted to sit down here in today's video and just tell you guys how badly I want a remaster, but also why it's really necessary, I think, for a game that did so much for the industry. It's not just me fanboying. I think there are plenty of games that did so much for our industry, but Fallout 3 was something that dropped at a special time and moved us forward in a way where open world was starting to become a thing, and Bethesda showed that they couldn't only do Elder Scrolls, but they could also do Fallout. It was really impressive. So I think this is a game that does deserve that re-release. It did a lot for our industry. But anyway, that's just my thoughts. Maybe you don't share those thoughts. Maybe you have better ideas than me. Whatever that may be, I want you to fire away in the comments down below. Ladies and gentlemen, I look forward to reading your thoughts. As always, be sure to follow me on Twitter, like me on Facebook. Those links are in the description down below, along with my Patreon. Do consider supporting that as it fuels all the content I create here. Stay sexy, stay active. I love you all. Peace.